Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. As most of you expected already, that today I'd like to introduce the 8 direction forces in Bagua practice along similar lines as my previous Xingyi 5 elements video. Like I mentioned in my Xingyi 5 elements video, basically there are 2 terms used in Chinese martial art to describe the result of any movement. Those are Li or force and Jin or power. In this video, as well as future videos, we will use the same definition as in the Xingyi 5 elements video. I recommend you take a look at that video to get a better understanding of this video. The link is in the description. Also, in my Bagua building block video, I introduced the basic concept of Bagua, or 8 trigram. We need this information to understand today's topic, so I recommend you watch that video first if you haven't already, and resume this video later. Link is in the description too. Topics covered in today's video include: first, Primordial Bagua and 8 3 elements. Second, current issues of Bagua basic movement training. Third, solutions for side issues. 4. Some principles of Bagua force training. Topic 5, demonstration. And 6, takeaways. Please keep in mind that the objective of this video is to clarify the training method in the traditional Bagua practice. Some of the content are my own research results through years of practice, teaching, and research and development. I hope it will help you in your practice as well. So let's get started. Topic 1. Primordial Bagua and 3 elements. In this section, we will focus on 2 items: Bagua or 8 trigrams, 2 Sancai or 3 elements. First, let's quickly review the concept of Bagua or 8 trigrams. There are 2 types of Bagua theories: Primordial Bagua and Postmordial Bagua. Primordial Bagua is used to describe nature event, and the Postmordial Bagua is used to explain the complexity of the relationships between humans and nature, especially the consequences of individual behavior. In Bagua practice, we apply the primordial concept to guide our practice, and use the postmordial to develop specific skills and techniques. Today, we will focus on the basic Bagua force training, which is considered a part of Primordial Bagua. So, let's talk about Primordial Bagua before we talk about force training. Primordial Bagua, or 8 earlier hyphen 8 trigrams, consists of 8 elements. Qian represents south and strength. Kun represents north and softness. Kan represents west and water. Li represents east and fire. Dui represents southeast and lake. Kun represents southwest and wind. Zhen represents northeast and thunder. 8. Gen represents northwest and mountain. Now let's talk about the second item, Sancai or 3 elements. The I Ching, or the Book of Cheng, mentions that 3 elements referring to heaven, earth, and human. These three elements are also used to explain the trigrams and hexagrams. In a trigram, the top line represents heaven, the middle line represents human, and the bottom line represents earth. In a hexagram, the top two lines represent heaven, the middle two lines represent human, and the bottom two lines represent earth. In Bagua, traditionally, 三才 or three elements are used to describe different areas in our body or certain movement and the direction of motion. For example, when the palm faces upward, it's called heaven. Or when the palm faces downward, it's called earth. Or when the palm faces sideways, it's called human. Those topics are the traditional knowledge in a Chinese metaphysics, which is part of the ancient Chinese philosophy. We will apply it in the later topics. Second topic, current issues of Bagua basic force training. I have elaborated in my prior videos that although Bagua is the comparatively underdeveloped style in terms of its theory compared to other two internal styles, it's very rich in practical content. In my opinion, the content and its related theory need to be organized systematically and presented such that practitioners find it easy to understand. That is why I created the building block approach to structure its content. Then, there's another serious question that demands our attention. What does Bagua's basic force training consist of? In other words, how many basic palm exercises exist in Bagua? If you don't know or are unsure of the answer, then trust me, you are not alone at all. Let me explain. We all know that in any style of martial art, we have to practice many specific movements to develop the relevant force and power. Traditionally, there are many training methods to achieve this objective in any style. Some people may say that there are many routines in Bagua, such as 8 big palm or even 24 or 64 palms. However, to develop force and power, the best way is to focus on this method, which should be simple, easy, and direct in terms of effect and result. So, a single movement and the basic palm should be the best approach instead of routines. Now, the question becomes, how many movements should we practice in order to develop Bagua force and power? If your answer is, I don't know, actually, that would be correct. Unfortunately, this is a common problem in current Bagua training. There's no clear set of movements to decisively answer this question. This is an issue with the development of Bagua itself. The practitioner is not to blame. Now, let me elaborate this issue further. Very often, when you read a Bagua book or study with some teachers, you may have learned some or many movements of Bagua, called Bagua basic movements. I would like to list some of them here. 推掌, pushing forward. 按掌, pushing downward. 托掌, pushing upward with fingers pointing forward. 冲掌, striking forward with fingers. 穿掌, striking forward by following a circular path. 穿掌. 削掌, strike with the hyperthinner. 片掌, striking with the hyperthinner in a particular trace, like this. 劈掌, striking with the hypothenar forward and downward, like this. 叉掌, striking with fingers while forcing outward, one forcing outward. 领掌, leading the opponent's force outward or backward. 带掌, leading the opponent's force backward with grabbing or holding shape, the hand. 撩掌, striking upward from downward with the edge of the little finger side. 缠掌, moving along opponent's arm like this. 缠掌. 正掌, striking with back of the palm, pushed by another hand on the palm. 切掌, striking with the hypothenar downward, like this. 踏掌, striking with the heel of the palm while finger point sideways. Sideways. 探掌, extending the palm forward and striking with the fingers. 摔掌, striking with the back of the palm with a whipping force. 挑掌, striking upward with the heel of the palm. 截掌, striking with a 90-degree angle on opponent's fourth line. Let's come to here. 云片掌, striking with the full circle made by the palm and strike forward and sideways. 撞掌, striking with the hem of the palm with finger point outward. 盖掌, striking downward. 反背锤, striking with the back of the fist horizontally, like this. 铡锤, hammering with the fist on the little finger side. 掩手掌, blocking with the arm with an inward motion. 粘掌, staying and following the opponent's palm or arm. 勾 hooking. 挑掌, striking upward. 撩掌, striking upward with the back of the index finger area, like this. There are further variations possible as well. Given so many hand movements, it is not so efficient for the practitioner to remember them all and practice them efficiently. In order to follow the philosophy of less is more, we need to categorize those movements and make them easy to understand so we can train more efficiently. Topic 3. Solution for above issue. I use two principles to classify and categorize the hand movements I mentioned earlier. Those are primordial Bagua to indicate the direction of the force. Second, 3 types of hand shapes for each direction. That gives us 24 single hand movements. To introduce this approach, let's use 3-dimensional coordination geometry to explain this. We face forward the y direction. Our body vertically follows the z direction, and our extension arm follows the x axis. The horizontal plane matches the 8 trigram system. X-axis is 坎, negative x-axis is 离, y-axis is 前, negative y-axis is 坤, middle way between x and y is 对, middle way between negative x and y is 顺, middle way between x and negative y is 艮, middle way between negative x and negative y is 正, and z-axis is 中宫, middle place force extends upward and downward. This is Bagua's 9-palette structure. Next step, we have to know that there are 3 hand shapes or positions for each direction. Those are palm faces direction of movement. Second, back of the palm faces direction of the movement. Third, palm faces sideways. When the palm faces sideways, there are different types of position depending on the direction that palm faces. To simplify the system, we consider the 2 sideways facing palms are 1. Now I prefer to use 三才 or 3 elements to describe the 3 different hand positions. Let's take the upward middle palette direction or the z-axis as an example to demonstrate this. When the palm faces upward, it is heaven palm. When the palm faces downward, it is earth palm. And when the palm faces sideways, then it is the human palm. Next, we consider the combination of 8 direction and 3 element system to make up a total of 24 combinations. And other actual movement can be considered as the variations of these 24 combinations. Let's go one step further by taking the nature of each trigram into consideration by applying the training principle with the characteristics of each trigram. The Cheng trigram is hard and strong in connotation. So hand movements going forward should be hard and strong. It is a direct attack. It should follow the Cheng energy. When the force moves toward the opposite of the Cheng trigram or the Kun trigram, it should be soft or yielding force. In Bagua practice, any backward or Kun force such as yielding or absorbing motion should be neutralizing force. When the force follows the Kan or Li trigrams or move sideways, no matter inward or outward, the force is somewhere between hard and soft. And the rest follow similar principles. Then the middle palette force or energy follows the expansion and extending principle in practice. So far, we have not only categorized the force into 8 directions and 3 elements positions, but also we apply the nature of the force aligned with the characteristics of each trigram. I think this new method will help Bagua practitioner understand each practice in a much more organized and systematic way, which reflects Bagua simultaneously as both a philosophical concept and as well as a physical practice system. Topic 4. Some principles of Bagua force training. Like I mentioned in my previous video, that power is not the same as the force. Power is a combination of a force and the speed of application. Force alone without the speed of application is not sufficient to have any impact on the opponent in self-defense situations. To generate Jin or power, the practitioner also needs to apply the movement at high speed. This requires the practitioner to practice each movement as intended in order to train the primordial power. Let me introduce some simple principles of force and power training here. I used the following 6 short proverbs in Chinese to help my students remember the principle. These are 混元一气, 两仪互变，掌事三才，力打八方，八方归一，神守中宫。The English equivalents are initiate energy from the Hunyuan state. Second, yin-yang energies constantly interchange. 3. Manage the three elements hand shapes. 4. Strike to 8 directions. 5. 8 directions return to 1. 6. Always focus on the middle palace. Now, let us look at each proverb. First, initiate energy from the Hunyuan state. To have force, one should especially pay attention to the Dantian area, which is the source of force, and thus power as well. We call it the place to generate Hunyuan energy. In Bagua practice, we generate energy using circular movements. There are two types of circular movement in Bagua. The first one is the footwork, which consists of walking along a circle or a circular path. The other type of rotation is the body rotation itself. You can consider circle walking to be similar to Earth's revolution and around the sun, and the body rotation to be similar to Earth's rotation around its axis. Second, yin-yang energies consistently interchange. In Bagua practice, this means that the body, especially the palm, constantly change the energy level between them. In practice, one should always focus on hand coordination. So, treat both hands as a single unit and adjust the strength according to specific situations. 3. Manage the three elements hand shapes. We use three elements to describe the basic hand positions and hand shapes. In Bagua training, even though we focus more on open palm shapes, you can always change your open hand palm shape into fist and still follow the same principles. So, in practice, training in different directions with different hand shapes, including both open hand and fist shapes, will dramatically improve your martial power and force in application. 4. Strike to 8 directions. There are 8 basic directions in Bagua, but there is no limit to the number of the movements that result out of combinations of basic movements in 3 directions. The concept of 8 directions is used to conveniently organize movement based on the direction of force. 5. 8 directions return to 1. This means the objective of training of 8 directions is to eventually unify all the forces into one. To practice this, one has to keep this principle in mind and intentionally practice each single movement by integrating all the movements together. This is considered an advanced practice. Even though beginners may find this difficult to understand, it will be helpful to know this at an earlier time and analyze each movement with this principle in mind. 6. Always focus on the middle palace. To focus on the middle palace actually means to focus on the Dantian or power generation. Bagua practice requires practitioners to pay attention to 2 types of circular movement, like we mentioned earlier already. The first one is around the center of the circle using footwork in order to apply Bagua fighting strategy. The other is the body itself rotation in order to generate the power and force. Be careful here that the first one not be always along a well-defined circle, but more of the circular pattern. And the second one may not be a big rotation or coiling motion, since it can be a subtle motion inherited by the waist and the hips. Power in both types of movement is initiated from the middle palace or dantian. Hence, focus on the dantian is of primary importance. I hope these 6 sentences can help you improve your practice from now on. Topic 5. Demonstration. I would like to demonstrate the Cheng trigram force training method. Hello, let's practice one exercise that we focus on one direction, which is the Cheng direction, but with 3 kind of hand shape in force training. The first one is this one. So if I face forward, I turn about 90 degrees. Then extend, extend, extend. First one. Second, this posture. So turn 90 degrees, then extend. Third one, this one. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Topic 6. Takeaways. First, Bagua's basic curriculum about force and power training has not been well organized so far. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first attempt at the systematic presentation of Bagua's force training theory and concepts. Second, the combination of primordial Bagua and the 3-element concept can be applied in organizing those training content and will greatly benefit both teaching and practice. 3. Certain definite principles in applying force and power should be observed in order to have a better result in training. Thank you for watching. See you next time and enjoy your practice.